How would you like to be able to use column totals in the formulas on your Monday boards? Today I'm going to show you a trick on how to do that relatively easily. Let's take a look. All right, so here is a Monday board that I created, and it is fairly simple. We have numbers here, and I want to do a formula where this is a percentage of the total. One way to do that would just be to type this in using this value. An easier way, a little better, would be to use a secondary formula column, and this way I don't have to edit the actual formula. I can just put that value in there, and every day I can come in here and update this, and then all of my values are correct. Now if I change this, obviously that's going to change my column sum, and I would have to then change this formula. So it would be great if we were able to do that automatically. And it's not a super easy nut to crack, but I do have a trick. If this video inspires you to create an Integromat account, you can use the affiliate link in the description below. Also, this video will show you how to link Integromat and Monday. And lastly, we recently released our first app for Monday users and have submitted that to be included in the Monday marketplace. We are still in beta, so if you're interested in that, you can check out that link also in the description, and look forward to it. Okay, that's it. Let's get started with the good stuff. I'm doing something a little bit different this time. I'm going to, instead of walking you through the actual construction of each piece, I'm going to just jump into what I've already done, and you guys can let me know if you like this better. So the previous board was not so tricky. This is tricky. All right, so what I did is I created a linked board, and I just named the item in there tricky, and I put in a value in that board that is this sum. So, but what I want to do is update that automatically. So that is the real trick, is to make all of this work automatically. Now I also, to make this easy to link, I set in the item default the column total connect board to the item that I want to connect it to. Now there's a lot of different ways we could do this, but that's the way I did it on this board. Now the next piece is the column totals board. It's not complicated at all. It has one item on it. I put the date in here just to give the last time it was updated, and here's the actual total. Okay, so let's look at a basic scenario in Integromat and how to do that. So I have this webhook that we're going to call anytime there's a change to that column, and I'm going to get the tricky board, and that'll give me all of the values for the entire board. I'm going to put that in an array. All right, before we go on, I want to take a quick look at this board just for completeness. I bumped this up. This is the board we're looking at, and I probably should be looking at just the number column and just bring that out. There's a number of reasons to do it that way, but I didn't. So, and then this piece here is from the reading of the board. I'm using that as the source module. I'm not using a data structure. And then here at the bottom, I'm collecting just the mappable column values. I don't need the board or the group or even the item. So all I'm doing is getting those mappable column values. And then I am going to add that up. So I wouldn't necessarily need a separate module for this. I would just put these formulas in my update, but I want to give a little bit more clarity, so that's why I have this separate. So what I did is I get the values, and I wanted to show how we do that. So this is taking this array that was created from the output of this module here, and it is basically just giving me returning a simple array with those values. And once we run it, I'll show you how that looks. And then the second piece is, this is how we would add it up. So it's exactly the same formula for the mapping. So it takes that array, gets the values out of it, and then adds them all up. Let's go ahead and run this. We'll go back to our tricky board and we will change a value and we'll make this 31. So now we have 1022.3. Okay, so I'm going to come back here to my scenario. It's done. I want to come back here. We got 1023.2. And here we have 1022.3. So it's off by 0.1. I'm showing you this not because we haven't solved it, but it is a peculiarity of the way the data exists in Monday boards to use the simple sum. Here is the problem. So we have a 0.1 value on this one, and we have 0.2 value. So this one works, and this one doesn't. So let me show you in the scenario. Here is the array that's coming back. This complication is why I use the mapping here to simplify that. So if we look now at these values and we open up those values, here's the list of all the values that we have. And here's the ones that I was telling you about where we have 0.1 and a 0.2. The 0.2 is adding up fine. That makes sense to the formulas. But the 0.1 doesn't have a 0, and so it doesn't know what to do with this, and it just treats it like a string, and it basically gives it the value of 0. So this is, is probably not super significant, but there's a little piece of me that's an accountant. Very little piece. But so I want things to be accurate all the time, and that is not. So when we add this up and we update our board, it's off by a little bit. We'll come back here, and what we want to do is make sure that this and this are the same, right? So we have a different way to do that. And here is column totals scenario number 2. It's basically the same. We get the webhook, we get the board values, we aggregate that into an array. And this, again, we don't need, but it does simplify where the formulas are, show us that. Now, here is what I have found to be the simplest way and the least expensive to fix those kinds of issues. We could potentially put another module in here that would fix any of those errant values. But what would happen is we would get one operation here and one operation here, but that middle module would run however many times there are items in the board. That could be very significant, and we don't want to waste those operations. The easiest way I have found is you basically turn the array, which is coming from here. So here's my values array, and I'm going to turn that into a string. That's what this transform to JSON module does. If you're looking for this, it's called JSON. It's in the JSON group. And here's another JSON. So once we've turned that into a string, we can now manipulate it. And we don't need a data structure. That's more complicated than we need. And what I'm doing is I'm doing a replace using a regular expression here. And I won't go into the super detail, but I will explain it a little bit. And I'm recreating an array called good values using the string that we just created. If I didn't have this replace, all it would basically be doing is changing the name of the array. What I'm doing here is I'm looking, this /x22 is looking for a quote, and then I'm looking for a period. That slash means that I want to use this as a literal value, and then this is the rest of the regular expression requirement. This is saying that it's global. It's going to return multiple times if it needs to. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that first part, because this is in parentheses here, I'm capturing it. So I'm getting that quote, then I'm adding a 0, and then I'm putting the period back. Nothing else changes. And so if it doesn't find a quote period, it doesn't do anything. It just leaves that alone. So that's what that's doing. Okay. And then we're going to use that new array in our totals. And one other adjustment that I made is in this one, I'm taking the good values, which is our new array. I'm summing those, And then just a peculiarity sometimes with numbers and computers, they don't, it's this will come out to 0.0000000001. I don't want that. um, so I'm multiplying by 1,000, I'm rounding that, and then I'm dividing by 1,000. So that gets rid of all of those other digits at the end that I don't care about. So that's how we're doing that. And then I'm adding the date. That's just the now, and I'm including the time. Do we need to know what the time is that this was last calculated? No, but maybe later we would. Let's run this, and I'm going to change this to 0. Now, when numbers changes, send a webhook is happening. So it ran my thing here. And let's take a look at our array. And you see this is the one that we're having the problem with. A quick look at this JSON string. So this is our array turned into a string. And you can see there, the structure of these slashes are denoting that this is an escaped quote. And here's the issue that we have right here. So there's no 0 there, and that's what we're replacing. And now if we look at this new array, we see that that's been fixed. If we wanted to optimize this, everything in here is required except this. We can just eliminate that and reference those formulas directly. Then we output it. So let's make sure that we got the correct value. So we got 91.3, and let's see if that's the correct total. It is. So 91.3. So now, if I am in my board and I change this back to 32, I don't have this turned on, so I'm gonna come back here and run this again. Okay, so the trigger will happen every single time there is so there it's updated now. Every time there's a change to any of these columns, again, here's when numbers change, sends a webhook. We could get more complicated. We could use group totals, and probably the way I would approach that is in this columns. Instead of having a specific item that is for just the board, and I might do something like that, but then I would add another item that is the column totals for the group. Then I would have a tricky second group and a tricky group 1, and however many groups I had, I would put an item for each one of those. And so these I could then reference based on the group value. One last thing that I wanted to add, this is being called via a webhook. And so every time there's a change to a value in that column that we're totaling, we are running this. It might be advantageous if you have a very large, very active board that you would like to not do this every single time. You could have this just remove the webhook. You could schedule this to run on a particular frequency. So you could run it once a day, you could run it every hour. Then you wouldn't necessarily be having this to happen all the time. And it really depends on your use case. If we're looking at these as percentages and you have a very large board, for example, these, changing this from 32 to 320 might not be significant in the moment to have this update. The other thing I wanted to mention is because these are using Connect boards, if you make a change, and I'm not going to do another calculation. Let me just change this to 1. And I'm going to jump back to my board. Well, that happened really fast. But sometimes this can be delayed, and you might actually have to do a refresh. So, this is a pervasive concept with Monday and almost every single cloud-based computing type thing. There often are back-end pieces that are doing the updates. And so when you have things that are connected, it can sometimes take time for the data to propagate. Let's try one more time and see if I can get back there before it changes. I don't think it matters. When I click out of that, it's going to update it. Okay, well, it still happened really fast. Okay. But you get the idea. Sometimes it doesn't, and you actually need to do a refresh. So that's the point. That shows you how to do it. Let me know if you like me going through it quicker that way. I don't think we get into the detail as much for beginners, but there you go. All right, that's it for today, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, do that. And if you hold on just a second, I'll show you some more of the videos that we have available. Till next time, I'm Jim, the Money Man.